Yesterday, Sayadaw explained Sila Sikha, morality training, from both theoretical and practical aspects. And Sayadaw started to explain on Samadhi Sikha, concentration training. And Sayadaw explained that by developing Lokiya Jhana, mundane kind of absorption is the Samatha Jhana. And to put it in the Vipassana, in Vipassana word, it is called Samadhi Khanda, the concentration group. In other words, Samadhi Sikha, concentration training. The object of Samatha and Vipassana is different. In order to practice Lokiya Samadhi, in order to practice mundane kind of absorption, one has to take Paṇḍitā concept as the object. Paṇḍitā concept does not really exist, but people name it as this and that, and these are just the concept. They don't really exist. In the practice of Lokiya Jhana, mundane absorption, one does not take Paramatha, the ultimate reality, as the object. In the practice of Lokiya Jhana, one has to focus one's attention on Paṇḍitā concept, which does not really exist, and one takes Paṇḍitā concept as the object in order to develop concentration, in order to develop Samatha Jhana, the mundane absorption. In the practice of Vipassana, one focuses one's attention on the object at the moment the object arises, and one has to know the object with aim and effort so that there will be sustained mindfulness and to develop Samadhi, concentration. And yesterday, Sayadaw explained Metta, loving kindness, which is among the Samatha practice. Among the many types of Samatha practice, Sayadaw explained about Metta. And Sayadaw yesterday said that he will continue to explain about Satipatthana practice, but later on Sayadaw changed his mind because Metta is very important in everyday life. Metta is important, that Sayadaw will continue to explain Metta. Because Metta, loving kindness, is very important in the person's life, it will not be proper to explain briefly. It will not be sufficient to explain briefly. If it is explained briefly, yogis might seem to understand without understanding it in detail. And today Sayadaw will explain what will be the benefits of developing Metta, loving kindness, and Sayadaw will explain what will be the bad consequences of lacking Metta. And Sayadaw will explain that by refraining from wrongdoings, what kind of benefits one gets, and by performing things that should be performed, how one will benefit. understanding, one will be able to refrain from bad things, and one will be able to make use of things by practicing. And Sayadaw will explain Metta more in detail, more about Metta. If one develops Metta, loving kindness, Karuna, compassion, also follows. When one has the wish for the welfare and benefit of others, one will feel happy to see others well and healthy and proper. One will be free from envy and jealousy. In this way, mudita will arise, seeing other people prosper, being happy, seeing others prosper. Mudita also follows to the person who develops metta, and thus metta is something that one cannot do without in the worldly life. When explaining about samatha and vipassana from both theoretical and practical aspects, it will be sensible to explain what is jhana. The word jhana, most of the people are acquainted with the word jhana, but still they might not understand it correctly. So there is the hidden meaning of jhana. Jhana is also called as upanijayana, and the definition of jhana is jayati, upanijayati jhana. Jhana is called jhana because one observes very closely, completely on the object. Observing closely, completely on the object is called jhana. And the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw explained this definition of jhana, jayati, upanijayati jhana, as jhana is the observation, observing closely, concentratedly, completely on the object. Jhana is explained as upanijayana, meaning observing very closely. So one should not observe it from a distance, but one should observe very closely. What does one need to observe? It is the object of meditation. A person who is practicing Lokiya Samatha Jhana, a person who is practicing the mundane absorption, observes Paññatti concept as the object. The person who is practicing Vipassana observes the Nama and Rupa, mentality and materiality, as the object. So the object of Samatha Jhana and Vipassana Jhana differs. The object of Samatha Jhana is Paññatti concept. The object of Vipassana is Paramattha, ultimate reality. Whatever the person is practicing, whether samatha or vipassana, when observing the object, the person should observe in a way so that his or her observation will be very close and very complete. When observing the object, the person should not observe the object partially, but the noting mind, observing mind, should cover the whole object. In Pali it is called Niravasesa, meaning one should observe the object completely, the whole object. One should not be observing partial object. One should not be observing only part of the object. One should observe the whole object. There should not be any remainder, or there should not be anything left out of the object that has been noted. So the observation should be complete. It should be very close observation, complete observation on the object, so that observation will cover the whole object. The object of Lokiya Jhana, in other words Samatha Jhana, is called Aramana. And Aramana means the object. And in the Samatha Jhana practice, it is the Paṇḍitā concept that is the object. When one radiates Metta, one single person or many persons, or one being or many beings, is the object of Metta. When radiating Metta, one should take the person or being one is sending Metta to as the object. So it is very important to take object of the person whom you are radiating Metta towards. In order to take object, the being or the person that you are radiating Metta to, one needs close observation so that it will be clear and precise. In the practice of Vipassana, in order to develop knowledge, the object of Vipassana practice is Lakkhana. Lakkhana means sign or characteristics to mark the object. So in the Vipassana practice, one has to observe the Lakkhana, the sign or characteristic, as the object, and there should be close observation, and it is called Upanijjhayana. In the Samatha practice, the object is called Aramana, and Upanijjhayana is the close observation. So in the Samatha practice, it is called Aramanupanijjhana, observing closely on the object, observing the Paṇḍitā, observing the concept closely as the object. It is for Samatha practice. In the Vipassana practice, the person observes Lakkhana, characteristics, very closely, completely as the object. So Vipassana practice is called Lakkhanupanijjhana. Closely, the person who follows the Jhana path, the person who follows the path to attain knowledge, practices Lakhanupanijjhana, observing very closely, completely on the characteristics. In order to attain Lokiya Jhana, mundane absorption, in the practice of Aramanupanijjhana, observing closely, completely on the object, there are various kinds of objects that can be observed to practice Lokiya Jhana. So one observes on the Paṇḍitā concept as the object. In radiating of Metta, one takes the person or being as the object. One has to take object, the form or shape of the person that you are radiating Metta towards, and one takes object, the form or shape and the manner of the person or being as the object. And when one gets to the stage of jhana, it is called Aramanupanijjhana. In Lakhanupanijjhana, when one practices in order to develop knowledge, one contemplates very closely on the characteristics. Lakhanupanijjhana is the Vipassana as well as Maggaphala Jnana, path and fruition knowledge. One has to practice in order to develop the Maggaphala Jnana, path and fruition knowledge. In order to attain path and fruition knowledge, one has to cultivate Vipassana Jnana, insight knowledge. In the practice, in order to develop Maggaphala Jnana, one has to observe the Nama Rupa very closely, completely. Maggaphala, path and fruition, has the Tathā Lakkhana, characteristic of truthfulness. And in order to explain Maggaphala Jnana, one should be explained about Vipassana Jnana, insight knowledge. In the practice, in order to develop Vipassana knowledge as well as the Maggaphala knowledge, one should observe the Lakkhana, the characteristics of the Nama and Rupa. There are two kinds of Lakkhana, two kinds of characteristics. The first one is Sabhava Lakkhana, unique individual characteristics. The second is Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristics. Each and every Nama Rupa has its own Sabhava Lakkhana, unique individual characteristics. If you feel the bones on your body, you can feel the hardness. If you feel the skin, the flesh on your body, it feels soft and supple. The hardness, roughness, softness are the unique individual characteristics of the earth element. The unique individual characteristic of Apo Dhatu, water element, is moisture, wetness, cohesion, congealing, and fluidity. So it is the moisture, wetness, cohesion, congealing, fluidity are the unique individual characteristics of Apo Dhatu, water element. Tejo Dhatu, the temperature element manifests as warmth, heat, cold, lightness. So the warmth, heat, cold, lightness are the unique individual characteristics of Tejo Dhatu, temperature element. And Vayo Dhatu, the air element, has the characteristic of tension, stiffness, movement, pulling, pushing. And the mind has the characteristic of cognizing the object. Phassa, contact, has the characteristic of touching. And Vedana has the characteristic of feeling. The Nama Rupa, mentality and materiality, each of them has their own unique individual characteristics. So the unique individual characteristics of each and every Nama Rupa are called Sabhava Lakkhana. And these Sabhava Lakkhana, unique individual characteristics, do not stay the same. They arise and pass away. The four great elements, the four Mahabhuta, also arise and pass away. The noting mind also arise and pass away. The other mental factors, contact, feeling, also arise and pass away. So nothing else stay long, they arise and pass away. So arising and passing away is common to all Nama Rupa. So the arising and passing away are common to all Nama Rupa, and thus Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristics. In this way, each and every Nama Rupa has its own unique individual characteristic, and there is the arising and passing away, which is common to all Nama Rupa, and thus there is Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristics. So nothing is permanent. They arise and pass away. When one is born, there will be death. So if there is death, there is no good. It is suffering. So the characteristic, impermanent, suffering, and non-self, they are common to all Nama Rupa. Just as the weather changes from one to another, the Nama Rupa also alter according to the cause and conditions. And the Nama Rupa arise as cause and effect, and there is no self in them. There is no self that exists. Nobody can create anything. Things are impermanent, suffering, and non-self. The characteristics of impermanent, suffering, and non-self are common to all Nama Rupa. In practicing Vipassana, one has to observe the common characteristics, Sabhava Lakkhana. One has to observe the Sabhava Lakkhana, unique individual characteristics, and Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristics. So one has to practice in order to discern the Sabhava Lakkhana, unique individual characteristics, and Samanya Lakkhana, common characteristics. In the practice, in order to develop Vipassana knowledge and to develop Magga-phala knowledge, one has to observe the Nama Rupa. The whole body and the mind is the field of objects to be noted. Within the fields of objects to be noted, there is the presently arising object that is freshly new, that should be observed. And Lakhanupanijjhana, meaning observing closely, completely on the characteristic. Sayadaw explains the word sabhava, and it will be helpful to understand what is sabhava so that in the practice one will be clear. Sabhava is made up of two, sa and bhava. Bhava are the things that arise due to causes and conditions. Bhavati upasatati bhavo, bhavati upasatiti bhavo, meaning bhava are the things that arise due to the causes and conditions. And sa means each and every or individual. Sako bhavo, sa bhavo, meaning the things that arise due to the causes and conditions are called sabhava. So when one feels the bone, there is hardness, roughness. It is the nature, the characteristic. When you feel the flesh, it is soft and supple. It is also the characteristic. So the characteristics such as moisture, stickiness, hardness, roughness, softness, cohesion, congealing, warmth, heat, cold, stiffness, tension, movement. These characteristics are individual characteristics, and they are called sabhava. And these hardness, softness, warmth, heat, cold, stiffness, tension, movement, moisture, congealing, cohesion, do not stay the same. They arise and pass away. So arising, passing away is common to all nama and rupa. They arise and pass away. They are no good. There is no self. So these characteristics, impermanent, suffering, and non-self, are common to all nama rupa. In this way, sabhava can also be samana bhava, common characteristics, as these characteristics are common to all nama rupa. So among these two types, the second type of characteristic is the samanya lakkhana, common characteristics. The unique characteristics, the individual characteristics, unique characteristics are the sabhava lakkhana. So yogi has to take note of these two types of characteristics. Sabhava lakkhana, unique individual characteristic. Samanya lakkhana, common characteristics. And later on, when Sayadaw explains about Jhana, Sayadaw will explain using these words, sabhava lakkhana and samanya lakkhana. So the individual characteristics that exist are sabhava lakkhana. And the manner, impermanent, suffering, non-self, are the samanya lakkhana, common characteristics. So in the text, the samatha jhana is explained as aramanupanijjhana, contemplating closely, completely on the object. Lakhanupanijjhana, observing the common characteristic, observing the unique individual characteristic and common characteristic of the nama rupa, is called Lakhanupanijjhana. So in this way, there are two kinds of jhana, Aramanupani jhana, and to remember it simply, Aramanupani jhana can be called Samatha jhana. Lakhanupani jhana, observing the unique individual characteristic, common characteristic of the nama rupa, is called Lakhanupani jhana. And partial Lakhanupani jhana, part of Lakhanupani jhana, is called Vipassana jhana. So these two types, Aramanupani jhana and Lakhanupani jhana, can simply be noted as Samatha jhana and Vipassana jhana. Sayadaw explains the difference of the two, Samatha jhana and Vipassana jhana. In the practice of Samatha jhana, the mind is calm, collected. So one practices Samatha in order to keep the mind calm, collected. There is knowledge involved, but the knowledge associating with the Samatha jhana does not discern the Sabhava Lakkhana and Samanya Lakkhana. So Samatha practice, through the Samatha practice, one will not develop knowledge into the unique individual characteristic and common characteristic of the nama rupa. In the practice of Vipassana, one develops knowledge into the unique individual characteristic and common characteristic of the nama rupa. So in this way, these two differ. Through the practice of samatha, one will not discern the sabhava lakkhana, samanya lakkhana of the nama rupa. Through the practice of vipassana, one discerns the unique individual characteristics and common characteristics of the nama rupa. And yesterday, Sayadaw explained the samatha jhana by explaining metta. To explain it in a Abhidhamma way, the practice of samatha jhana involves kama vajra kusala, and when one develops jhana, it will become rupa vajra and arupa vajra, kusala and kriya. In the practice of vipassana jhana, it involves kama vajra, kusala and kriya, and it will become mature stage by stage. And tomorrow, Sayadaw will explain how one cultivates metta bhavana, and this will be all for today. Metta bhavana, and this will be all for today. Metta bhavana, and this will be all for